Hello everyone, this is Fan from Tech Gaming Villa. I hope you all are well. Today I'm going to talk about the two TB, Sony A95K 65-inch and Hisense U8K, which is also a 65-inch TV. The left side is Sony A95K and right side is Hisense U8K. You know, the big difference between the U8K and the cheaper LCD-based TVs is its mini LED backlight. Hisense U8K is a mini LED backlight TV and Sony A95K is a OLED panel. The U8K mini LEDs, as the name suggests, smaller than standard LEDs, allowing them to be grouped into more local dimming zones. Full array local dimming is the best way to improve picture quality on LCD TVs. It allows the screen to dim and brighten different areas simultaneously. Smaller areas or more dimming zones mean more precise illumination, which ultimately increase contrast, the most important ingredient in good picture, but they are not the only factor. The Hisense U8K has a true 120 Hz refresh rate like Sony A95K, which leads to better motion performance than 60 Hz models. Like most TVs in its class today, it also uses quantum dots that help improve color compared to non-QD equipped TVs. And of course, it supports both Dolby Vision and HDR10 high dynamic range formats. These days, basically the only manufacturer that doesn't is Samsung. But Hisense U8K also has Dolby Vision IQ, which works with an ambient light sensor to automatically adjust the picture. It has 4 HDMI inputs, 2 with 4K 144 Hz, 1 with ER. Analog composite AV input, it has 2 USB ports, 2.0 and 3.0, Ethernet wired for internet, headphone jack, optical digital audio output, RF antenna input with ATSC 3.0 next gen TV. The Hisense U8K can accept 4K 120 Hz input signals from an Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5. Like many newer TVs, those inputs technically go up to 144 Hz. But that's not a big deal in my opinion, since you need a PC gaming card to take advantage of it and likely won't provide a big boost over 120 Hz input. Other gaming extras are par for the mid-range TV course, namely VRR or variable refresh rate and LLM auto game mode. One of the inputs also supports ER. The Hisense U8K's antenna input has a built-in ATSC 3.0 over the air tuner, which allows it to receive next-gen TV broadcasts. Those are still only available in a small number of markets, so I didn't get the chance to check out this feature. But it's nice to know that if the broadcasts become more widespread, U8K owners won't have to connect an external tuner box to watch. The 65-inch Hisense U8K and the TCL QM8, which costs about the same, and the LG OLED C3, which costs significantly more. And A95K Sony is the most expensive. I didn't include other models in the lineup this time, but for I can say the image quality of the U8K is significantly better, brighter with better color and contrast than the Roku TV Plus series, Amazon's Fire TV, Omni QLED, and Vizio NQX, and about the same as last year's TCL 6 series and Hisense U8H. The 4K Blu-ray disc and its nature scenes looked excellent. The well-lit shots of Yellowstone gestures and mountains were bright and brilliant, albeit a notch less impressive than the brighter TCL QM8 and not quite as contrasty as the Sony A95K. The difficult black background shots also look tremendous with almost no blooming and just a touch lighter than the absolute black. The range of color and brightness looked a bit more natural on the Hisense than the TCL, but Sony A95K is a whole new level of color. But the latter again showed an advantage in brightness. Watching the Netflix series Universe was similarly impressed by the Hisense in a series of animations of galaxies and starfares. It maintained deep black levels in the letterbox bars and large swaths of void better than the other TVs like TCL 6 series albeit not quite as well as the TCL QM8, the OLED. Highlights in a flare were much brighter than on the OLED and 6 series also. However, although again a bit dimmer than the QM8. And when the action returned to the rainforest, and the Hisense delivered excellent contrast and color in the forest canopy and plenty of detail in the fur of the chimps. Once more, it lagged behind the TCL QM8 in brightness and contrast, but the difference wasn't huge. And I did think the Hisense looked a bit more natural over than QM8, which subjectively seemed just a bit too bright in highlights. Hisense offers more gaming features than on last year's U8H, although they are not quite as varied as on Samsung, LG or TCL and Sony. When connected an Xbox Series X, hitting the menu key summoned a special gaming menu along the bottom, and that indicates current gaming status, including real-time frames per second, HDR and other features. Unlike the competition, Hisense doesn't include special picture modes for gaming, although you can move to another menu to toggle away from game mode and choose others such as HDR Sport or Filmmaker. I found this arrangement confusing, especially when the pop-up optimized for game settings appeared in those other modes. I much prefer to have separate discrete modes I know are designed for gaming. There is a single toggle for dark detail that brings up shadow detail, and you can click a special brightness setting to adjust it. I was annoyed that a few other settings, picture size, screen position, and high refresh rate mode were inactive. Don't worry about the last one. However, according to the Xbox menu, the U8K is capable of supporting every format the box can put out, including 4K 120 Hz and Dolby Vision. I also measured a solid 14 millisecond lag in game mode for both HDR and HDR. Comparing the game mode image quality between the Hisense TCL and LG C3 and Sony A95K, the story was similar to what I saw with TV and movies. The image of the Hisense looked a bit more balanced to my eye, with more natural color than the TCL's. I bumped up the local dimming setting to high on the Hisense to give it a bit more pop, but overall I preferred the more dynamic picture of the TCL for games. The Hisense U8K is super bright room performer, especially for the money. Its brightness measure just a couple nits shy of the competing TVs like TCL QM8, and it costs a lot less. And of course, it's much less expensive than an equivalent Samsung, and it's worth nothing. That unlike the Samsung QN90B, the Hisense U8K 65-inch model brightest mode on HDR is 1966 nits. On accurate mode HDR, also the same 1966 nits. But brightest mode HDR, it provides 1720 nits, and accurate mode HDR on 1240 nits. In HDR, the brightest mode IMAX was also the most accurate, which is an advantage over many TVs whose brightest modes have terrible color in HDR. However, the U8K's brightest mode is vivid, which so far bright room viewed, I would suggest using Theater Day instead. It's still quite bright. It's worth the trade-off in brightness to get better color, in my opinion. The TV screen finish did a fine job handling reflections about as well as the TCL QM8, but it didn't preserve dark areas as well as the LG C3 OLED. We see the Hisense U8K settings much like the Hisense U8H. The U8K, the three most accurate picture modes for HDR, HDR Theater, Filmmaker and IMAX modes were essentially the same in terms of color and grayscale. I again ended up choosing IMAX because the other two required tweaks to the default settings to look their best. Filmmaker engages the ambient light sensor by default, and HDR Theater does the same for soap opera effect, and in both cases I generally want to disable those features. In HDR mode, it was between Theater Night and Filmmaker, which both require similar tweaks. Filmmaker with the light sensor disabled was too bright and less accurate than Theater Night, so I went with the latter for the HDR being box measurements below. Again, it engages motion smoothing by default, however, so I recommend turning it off. In my opinion, that setting should be disabled from the start, as it is with the best picture modes of Hisense competitors. Note that I also changed the gamma control to white target to 2.2 instead of the default BT1886. So that tweak is reflected in the numbers below. I would also recommend doing so for bright room. The Hisense U8K black luminance on 0%, it results 0.020, which is good. On peak white luminance on HDR 720 nits, I have already said. And average gamma 10 to 100% is results 2.27, which is good. Average grayscale error 10 to 100% result 1.64, which is also good. Dark gray error 30% scored 1.24. Bright gray error 80% 2.13. Average color checker error 1.55. Average saturation shifts error 1.56, which is very good. Average color error only 2.33, which is very good. The input lag on game mode is 14.07. On HDR10 black luminance 0%, it's 0.004, which is good. Peak white luminance on 10% window 1966, which is also good. And USDA P3 gamut 97.37%, which is good, but not as good like Sony A95K, because A95K produced 99.95%, which is almost 100%, near perfect. And color match HDR error 1.90, average color checker error 1.02, which is good, and input lag on game mode 4K HDR 10, which is also 14.37 millisecond. Now, if I compare it with Sony A95K is a whole new level, is a different league TV. It's a OLED panel. Its super picture quality, color and brightness are outstanding, especially in HDR on A95K. Some of the best sound you can find from a TV. The sound performance also better than Hisense on A95K, but it has only 2 HDMI 2.1 ports and not the lowest input lag. By any standard, the Sony Bravia XR A95K OLED is remarkable TV, and often it's far better than that. This set, which sits at the top of Sony's expansive TV lineup, unites the industry's defining technologies and Sony's own groundbreaking processing and picture enhancements to deliver superlative performance in every area. And contrast, the color and brightness on the Bravia XR A95K are dazzling. Unexpected but genuinely useful smart features transform everything from how you interact with the screen, how you make picture adjustments, and even what you do if you lose your remote control. Perhaps most important, this Sony OLED TV looks and sounds like a dream, no matter what you watch on it, making everything a transcendent viewing and listening experience. The question with the A95K then isn't whether it's one of the best TVs you can buy. Like most other TVs out there, the A95K aims for the maximum amount of screen and minimum amount of bezel possible. Outlining the Z-Black display on all sides is metal bezel only 1/16 of an inch thick, though there's an added 0.75 inch band along the bottom for displaying the power light, and on the far left, nearly imperceptible Sony logo. The screen is thicker than on most recent OLED sets, but the size of the set itself ensures it makes a statement from any angle. That includes the back with the rear panel protruding another inch and cut with a dynamic square pattern, and emphasizes every departure, including the 300 to 300 millimeter VESA mounting holes should you want to put the TV on a wall. Choose not to wall mount it, however, and the A95K becomes a distinctive piece of your living room. A single piece stand is a heavy arc-shaped piece of metal as long as the TV, and about 10.8 inches deep. To install it, you screw the 2 included supports onto the stand, then screw the TV into the supports. TV may be connected to the stand so the foot is either visible from the front. The latter is more inherently attractive, but I prefer the overall leaner look of the former. The power cable connects to the right side of the TV, and all the other ports are on the left. These include a coaxial cable connector, an Ethernet jack, an SPDIF port for digital audio, an RS-232 connector, 2 USB ports, one maxing out 500 milliampere and one at 900 milliampere, a center speaker and remote IR inputs, red and black speaker terminals, and 4 HDMI ports. Of those, only 2 support the newer HDMI 2.1 standards, and thus 420 Hz, as it's not uncommon to see even lower price TVs with all HDMI 2.1 ports. This is a little disappointing. There is also a switch for enabling or disabling the integrated far-field microphone for controlling the TV with your voice. If you see the Sony A95K, its input lag is 16.1 millisecond, which is a bit higher than the Hisense U8K. Hisense U8K 14 millisecond. HDR brightness is lesser than Hisense U8K. It's a 297 nits on 10% white window. Delta E is which is 3.3223, which is good, and HDR peak luminance on 10% window is 1041 nits, 1042 nits in fact, which is lesser than the Hisense U8K. On UHD P3 color gamut is 99.95%, which is better than the Hisense U8K, and it's the best color gamut if I compare it with Samsung S95B and LG C2, because the S95B is 98.44% and LG C2 99.02%, whether Sony A95K is champion 99.95%, which is almost perfect, and on BT2020 color also 90% color gamut. If I compare it with Samsung S95B, scored 77% and LG C2 74.17%. So A95K on color gamut section is the champion. Being one of the new breed of QD OLED TVs combining quantum dot and OLED, the A95K promises the widest range of OLED colors ever, alongside the superior brightness, the infinite contrast levels, OLED offers, and best-in-class smarts thanks to its cognitive processor XR engine. In HDR tests, A95K hovered around just under 300 nits of brightness, 276 nits in its standard picture mode, 297 nits in custom, the closest to out-of-the-box calibration quality. Not objectively high, but good for OLEDs. As far as color reproduction, its best result was a delta E value, representing the difference in color between the source and what's displayed on the screen, with lower numbers being better. The delta E value of 3.3223 in custom, that's low, but I've seen plenty of other sets that were lower. LG C2, one of the best TVs on last year, managed 1.7009 in its best picture mode. The Sony's coverage of the Recon 709 color gamut was startling, 110.8% in custom, and secondly the LG B2, which is 130.5%, and 151.8% in standard, which is by far the highest I've ever seen. If you are thinking that all those colors with HDR suggest even more mind-blowing results with HDR, you would be correct with its peak brightness hovering around 1000 nits in as much as 25% of the picture. It's definitely one of the brighter sets I've ever seen. Only the Samsung Q95B and the Hisense U8K get consistently higher. The A95K's HDR color, however, was truly astounding, that it covered 99.95% of the UHD P3 color gamut in every mode, making it the unalloyed best. The runner-up, I will say, on this league, Samsung S95B with 99.76% in its filmmaker mode, isn't even the biggest news. It covered 89.44% of the even wider BT2020 color gamut, something no other set I have encountered has matched. Unfortunately, there's not much to say about the A95K's picture quality in real-world terms. The movie watching on A95K is fabulous experience. The Spider-Man No Way Home was exciting and fiery in its seamless relationship of its special effects to live action shots, so much so it almost looked better than it did in theater. Every drop, the edginess of the Batmans on the Green Gotham City was from the screen, with even deep blacks perfectly contrasted against blazing brights. If you see the A95K's gaming performance, which is fantastic, if there's no one area where the A95K doesn't quite rule the roast, it's dealing with input lag. Make no mistake, its time of 16.2 millisecond as measured with Leo Bordner lackluster, which is quite good, firmly below the 20 millisecond threshold for a satisfying gaming experience. But I would hope that a top of the line Sony like this one could get the time down to this 10 millisecond threshold of excellence, the rule rather than exception with Samsung's newest set. But none of this is to say that the A95K isn't excellent at gaming too. If you hook up your console to one of the 120 Hz HDMI 2.1 ports, you get all the associated benefits, including variable refresh rate, VRR, and auto low latency mode LLM. Because this is Sony I'm talking about here, if that console is PlayStation 5, you also get auto HDR tone mapping for still better picture quality and auto generate picture mode, what Sony calls a more sophisticated version of LLM design for non-gaming applications. Like a lot of people have spent an embarrassing amount of time playing Elden Ring. I was playing it on PlayStation 5 on the A95K. The graphics were pristine and the action maddeningly responsive in all the best ways. I had just as good a time on just an Xbox Series X with the snow-choked landscapes of Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming alive as they never had before. The Google TV is in serious competition for the simplest, cleanest, and richest smart TV interface, and it's right at home on A95K. Simple and quick to navigate, easy to search and adapt, at presenting plenty of new and recent options without overwhelming. It makes finding and watching movies, TV shows, and anything else a breeze. It surfaces major titles right at eye level, adds your apps below that, then list your continued watching titles. You never have to see anything more if you don't want. Links for search, live movies, shows, apps, your personal library, and dedicated Sony offerings line the top of the screen. And Google TV's seamless integration with Google Assistant helps still more, letting you search for things as easily on the TV as you would your phone or computer. One part of A95K is a 2-year membership in bravia, Sony's proprietary streaming service, along with 10 movies to redeem. It's a mixed blessing. bravia is like all of the manufacturer services unnecessary given how much else there is out there to watch, and most of its catalog isn't inspiring, but it doesn't stream in 4K at 80 megabytes per second, so it may be worth it to you. So Sony has outdone itself with the Bravia XR A95K. The company has taken its previously towering picture enhancement technologies and supercharged them, sound, color, speed, interface, you name it, the A95K has it, and whatever you want to do, this TV excels at it. LG C2 comes close to it as far as features, and the Samsung Q95, this brightness is truly a sight to hold, but I'm not convinced either beats the A95K as package deal. Its picture quality is fantastic now and only likely to get better as Reflection 2020 gains ground. Its sound is the next best thing to being there, and it is so loaded with intuitive and forward-thinking capabilities that just turning it on is like careening into the future. So, which TV you like most, the Hisense U8K Mini LED or Sony A95K OLED? Please write in the comments below. That's it from now. If you like this video, please subscribe and press the bell icon for future notifications update. I have another channel named Awesome Tech Gaming Pro, where I upload similar kind of tech videos. Please visit this channel and subscribe for update. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.
To change up.